Let's talk about discipleship. Yeah, I know I'm out here looking mad rugged right now, but it is what it is. I think it's important that we talk about, making disciples and the fact that in order to make disciples, you would need to have been a disciple or be a disciple. So let's start here. What is a disciple? A disciple or a mathetes is a pupil, is a student, someone who learns from a teacher, a learner. Now, I understand people want the big callings in ministry and all of that, but we are all called to be disciples of Jesus. Jesus himself in Matthew 11 and 29 says, Methete ap emu, which is learn from me. Now, luckily for us, we have the teachings of Jesus preserved for us by the apostles and the eyewitnesses in the gospel account. So if we would just have the discipline, you feel me, to read and to study the gospels as we would any other book that has something to teach us, I mean, that would quite literally make us disciples of Jesus Christ. So what's a requirement of being a disciple? Personal sacrifice, dying to self and living to Christ Jesus. So the reason why we do baptism is because it symbolizes us dying to self with Christ Jesus and being raised to spiritual life with him and in him. But let's notice what Jesus says here, Luke 14. He says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Now listen, there's no reason for us to examine the Greek word for hate because Jesus is using what is called hyperbole right here, or hyperbole, however you want to pronounce it. Jesus's point here is that you must prioritize your relationship with him over all relationships. Now, clearly to literally hate your father, your mother, your sister, brothers, friends, family, all that, that would clearly contradict God's commandment to honor, to love, and to honor your father and your mother, and to love your neighbor as you do yourself. Now, how will people know that we are his disciples? Well, John says that Jesus said it's by the way we have love for one another. Now, the Apostle Paul also gives us a theological definition as to what love is, and he describes it as being self-sacrificial. Now, this is consistent with what Jesus said about no man having a greater love than this, than the one who will lay down his life for a friend. And in the near future, I will be going more in depth into what it means to love your neighbors and to love your enemies. But for now, I just want to keep it to this main point here. So, denying yourself and following Jesus is what it means to be a disciple. This involves learning from him, studying his teachings, applying it to your life, and thus living it out. And loving one another in a self-sacrificial way is what it looks like to be his disciple. See, it doesn't matter if you went to church for 20-something years, you were a Sunday school teacher for 5 years, or whatever the excuse may be. There were plenty of people who followed Jesus as he went around teaching. There were plenty of people who loved to hear the things that he had to say, but didn't want to commit to the things that he was saying. They walked away when the things that he was saying were too strong or too difficult. So it is the same with every generation after them. You know what I'm saying? Even to our generation today. There are nominal Christians everywhere across all walks of life. But who wants to be a disciple, a true disciple? I do. But anyways, so that's what it means to be a disciple, and that's what it looks like to be a disciple. In the next video, we're going to talk about making disciples, because after a long period of consistent growth, you know what I'm saying, of being a disciple, that's when you're able to make disciples. So I'll catch you on the next vid. Deuces.